You're watching News at Prime. Let's get into this discussion now. International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola is promising that South Africa will continue with its human rights-based foreign policy stance. This as geopolitical tensions simmer in various parts of the world. Lamola is with me in studio now as he reflects on his 100 days in office. Minister, good evening to you and thank you for your time. How has it been being a Minister of International Relations and Cooperation?
Exciting and challenging, with all the travels and back-to-back meetings from various jurisdictions in the world, but also dealing with a lot of geopolitical issues that they are very evolving at a fast pace. But I think it's a good time for South Africa, positive sentiments in both the North and the South hemisphere, with the current outcome of the national elections, which all South Africans have embraced and we have been able to form a government. I think this is the biggest opportunity for this country to turn these sentiments into foreign direct investment, into injecting more of our work on human rights across the globe. So it is indeed something that we believe can help to input into the resolution of the challenges that the country is facing on inequality, poverty, and unemployment.
You're turning my interview upside down, Minister, because now you talk the GNU, which I was hoping to come to as a last point. But let's go your route. You were recently at the UN General Assembly, and the President sold the story of the GNU, and as you say, we're riding a wave of positive sentiment for a change. Do you believe, I'm talking now party politics, do you believe within the ANC that the GNU is under threat from some individuals? Put the alliance leadership aside for a moment, parties like the SACP. Within the ANC, is the GNU under threat?
No, not at all. It's the GNU is an outcome of an NEC deliberations, and it was decided by the highest decision-making body of the ANC after extensive deliberations, having looked at all the options that we could take. And it was clear that the only viable and practical way forward as a tactical maneuver, it was the GNU. So it is not under threat. What we can only do is to consolidate going forward. And in particular, these positive sentiments that are coming out within the country with some of the surveys showing that this is what is embraced by the people of South Africa, including the international sentiments. If we are able to attract foreign direct investment, we are able to grow the economy, we are able to resolve the challenge of unemployment, the challenges in the network sector, energy, water, and so forth. That is what people want, and that is what we should focus on.
Well, but if you look at the recent developments, just today, Tshwane has a new mayor because the ANC-sponsored motion of no confidence passed against Xoli Mngambi, who is a DA mayor. Action SA is not part of the GNU, by the way, and theirs, let's not forget, was a ticket to say we want to remove the ANC from power. Your GNU partner, the DA, is who has been removed in Tshwane. So I find it interesting when you say the GNU within the ANC is not under threat. How then do you resist it being solidified, or perhaps let me put it differently, how do you sell the story of the GNU that ought to remain intact when you have veterans of the party like Willis Mchunu, who has resigned saying, this is not the ANC of old that I know?
Yeah, firstly, fortunately, I was part of the negotiating team for the GNU, and I knew from the onset that the discussion was about the national government, that it will not have any impact on the provincial and even at local government. Hence, the GNU remains standing. We continue to work to continue to achieve issues of economic growth, to resolve unemployment. And as I've said, some of the sentiments we got from outside the country is that if we're able to sustain this level of stability, foreign direct investment will flow, and the economy would grow at about at a certain level that will end up helping us to be able to create jobs. That is what we need to resolve. And secondly, we are beginning to turn the corner, or we've turned the corner with regards to electricity, logistics. That will also help to resolve the challenges of the economy. And the South Africans will find jobs, will resolve also the issues of water. You have seen the issue of the BRICS Bank offering a 1 billion loan that will enable us to resolve. So the government exists to resolve issues of the people and of service delivery. Yeah. So if government is moving to resolve these problems, you can't have a problem with who we are working with. Okay. It's a tactical issue. We did not have the enough votes to govern alone. We had to find tactical friends, and we found them. We are governing. We are resolving the issues that confront our people.
I'm going to move on from the politics of South Africa because you're here on international relations matters. So in essence, as we close this chapter, you are saying that the Democratic Alliance is being opportunistic. They are trying to play to the gallery by saying that if you threaten DA members or DA mayors in metros where you are co-governing, then the GNU at national is going to be under threat. Are you saying that they simply playing politics? This GNU was tied up at national government. As it regards spheres down below, that's just pure politics. Is that your stance?
Yeah, obviously, I'm not using the harsh words that you're using, opportunistic and playing politics. I'm stating the facts and reality. From the onset, the GNU engagements was about national government. And you will remember, even when we were forming governments in KwaZulu-Natal, in Gauteng and so forth, there was no imposition of the GNU position because we always understood, but we encouraged the parties that are part of the GNU, the DA and everyone, to try and obviously find each other, even in provinces. But it was not a prerequisite, and that was made clear. And even when you read the statement of intent, you will not find it where it says this is a prerequisite for formation of a provincial government, and it's also a prerequisite for local government. It's a language of encouragement. But it was more specific about national government, and that's what we followed to form the national government. And the issues of provinces and local government becomes part of evolving discussions between the parties who are participating in the GNU and those that may want to participate in the provincial and local government sphere.
As we move from South African politics, but I want to still focus the attention on South Africa, but the attention on your department. There is an outcry, Minister Lamola, that South Africa is being used as a training ground by militant groups such as the 95 Libyans who were recently deported without going through trial, despite them being in the country illegally and having come here under false pretenses that they were students. Your department played a role in them getting here. What role was that?
Yeah, and they were arrested by the South African government to show that what was happening was illegal. It's not allowed in terms of South African law. And in any other place in this country, if such is happening, authorities must be informed and they will be arrested. So it should not be a ground for such things. Obviously, with us, we continue to play various roles in the diplomatic platform. Some of them we can inform, but some we can't. When the people come into the country, they state their reasons. But when they arrive in the country and do something opposite to what they have stated, which is illegal, the police and the laws of the country must take course.
Let me simplify this question. What areas in your department do you believe need tightening so that people such as the 95 Libyans, and I'm only using them, even though there are many other examples, but because they were such a large group of people, training here, receiving training to go, I guess, and become some paramilitary group back in their country, and you will know their country is in turmoil. That could invite trouble for us. So where within your department there needs to be tightening of regulations?
Yeah, obviously that is currently a subject of an ongoing investigations with regards to who played which role, and also how do we then tighten moving forward so that we don't have such loopholes. But it's always difficult, Xoli, when someone states that I am going to do the following in that country, and go into that country, do something different from what they have said. When they come present themselves and show you this is what we're going to do, you will always find it within the face and the four corners of that document, unless you have got further information and so forth. But this will be an issue of further, is part of a further investigation, which will further help us to how we take it forward. But it's a reality that if someone arrives and then they do something else, and that's why after the tip-off, the police had to intervene. They were arrested because they were in violation of the law.
Let's talk about the Middle East conflict. South Africa took an active interest at a time when Israel had started its bombardment of the Gaza Strip. Sitting here today, this is a year on, do you believe that South Africa has succeeded in preventing a genocide on Palestinian people by Israel in Gaza?
Yes, we have succeeded in shining the spotlight and also in shaping the international community's perspective. If you remember at that time, there were a number of resolutions of the UN Security Councils that were vetoed. They could not go through at that time for the cessation of fire, cessation of hostilities, and so forth. But after the ICJ case, there was now a shift in the international community, and hence, as was seated here, we now have a resolution of the Security Council to cease fire, to allow humanitarian access, and so forth, on top of the ruling of the ICJ. And even the populations in many parts, both in the south and the north, there is now a groundswell of support for cessation of fire, cessation of hostilities. But you can see the state of Israel is continuing with impunity. But that does not mean that our rule has not been effective. We believe it has been effective because, one, we now have a resolution of the Security Council. Two, the international community is now all in support and mobilizing against what is currently happening in the Gaza Strip and now extended with the escalation to Lebanon.
Do you genuinely believe that a ceasefire could be in the offing at a time when Israel is involved in what is being described as a war? They are involved in a war on multiple fronts within the region. Yemen, Lebanon. There's also possibly Syria here. This seems to be spiraling out of control. I'm quite intrigued for you to explain why you think a ceasefire could be in the offing when the biggest ally of Israel, which is the United States, is unrelenting in its support for the government of Israel right now.
It is the only way out, the ceasefire. The history of the conflict shows that there won't be a military victory for anyone. Even the state of Israel, with this escalation, it will only lead to more conflict and a huge escalation of the conflict in the Middle East. The only way of resolving it is through a ceasefire, through all the parties agreeing to de-escalate, and also ensuring that the resolution of a two-state solution, particularly for Palestine and Israel, does materialize as called for by the UN Security Council. We do believe that there is value in continuing to call for ceasefire. You have seen the Secretary General of the UN yesterday. He did continue to call. We believe that the world should not be tired to call for a ceasefire, to also call for the parties who are friends of Israel, like the US, to continue to de-escalate, even themselves, particularly on the side of supplying of weapons. You can see when you look at the United Kingdom, there is some movement in terms of humanitarian access. They are back at UNRWA. They have also banned selling certain weapons and so on. But this came out as a result of this unrelenting campaign by countries to call for a ceasefire, and also through the resolutions of the Security Council. If you remember, there has been more than 10 resolutions of the Security Councils that could not go through calling for a ceasefire. But if the world had given up, we will not be sitting here today with now a resolution of a ceasefire. So we cannot give up. We must continue to put pressure, and it will only be through this unrelenting pressure that we will end up with a ceasefire. There will never be a military victory.
On Russia's war against Ukraine, how do you respond to criticism that says South Africa is still clinging to old ideologies? These are outdated ideologies, making itself, therefore, an ally of autocratic regimes such as the Kremlin.
There is nothing that shows that we have made ourselves such an ally. We have been very clear that we are a non-aligned country. We are not aligning ourselves with anyone. We are seeking peace through peaceful dialogue and engagement. And that's why the President led the Africa initiatives to engage with President Zelensky and President Putin. And you will remember, even at the UN General Assembly last year, again this year, we have continued to call and respect for Article 2.4 of the UN Charter, which is the sovereignty and self-determination of any nation, as an important basis of engaging in finding a long-lasting solution in this conflict. And it is that reason why the President, the Security Advisor, continued to participate in the peace initiative in Ukraine with the DG of International Relations. And we have called there that it will be practically impossible to find peace without Russia on the table. Yeah. And President Zelensky has agreed that indeed, in the next engagements, they must find a way of inviting Russia to open up that channel of communication, to engage with them on the peace plan.
But Ukraine has a problem with that, because they are saying that the recent naval exercise here in Simonstown, there was the involvement of a Russian warplane that was part of that, and that talks to South Africa's solid relationship with Russia. How do you defend that?
Yeah, and we have clarified that issue, that we do those naval trainings, defense, with all the countries. The U.S., in fact, we do more with the U.S. Such military training and exercise exhibitions. We do them with China, we do them with the UK, we do them with everyone. And that obviously will include Russia. I think maybe the issue they will always raise is the issues of timing and all that, which we have explained that these are days that have been predetermined and schedules agreed upon by all the parties involved. We continue to engage them, and even on the margins of the UN, there was an engagement between President Ramaphosa and President Zelensky of Ukraine, so that we continue with these engagements to persuade all the parties, both Ukraine and Russia, to come to the table of engagement.
I'm out of time, Minister. Very briefly on this, Africa has a chance or has an opportunity to get a seat on the Security Council, but the criticism is that the continent cannot accept that without veto power, because otherwise it's an empty seat. Will you accept that without veto power? Will you accept a seat on the UN Security Council without veto power?
Yeah, the position of the AU is the Xoli consensus, that the 2 seats that must come to the African continent must have a veto power. But the Pact of the Future, which is now a groundbreaking, revolutionary program that has been adopted by the UN in terms of its reforms, does speak to the reform of the Security Council. So there is a discussion now on the table that we must have, including, as you are aware, the US has also put its own position with regards to this. But there's a key aspect of the US position, which we think is worth considering and engaging, because it's on the table, is that they are now saying, and which we have proposed, agreeing with us, that we must now move to a text-based negotiation, which means that we must now engage on the basis of a text, that this is how the reformed Security Council must look like. We believe this is now an opportune moment because, as you are aware, the current talks have been going on for many years, more than 20 years, with no text, with no clarity in terms of what we want to achieve. So we think this is an opportunity for engagement, and even ourselves in the African continent, we will continue to engage on the issues as we have demanded through the Xoli consensus.
Ronald Lamola, Minister of Department of International Relations and Cooperation, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.